So, Miss Green, you're studying biomedicine, and this month you're specifically focused on the skeleton, which is the support system of the human machine. And as I was contemplating the topic that we wanted to discuss, not just learn about bones and stuff, I was thinking of an ancient yoga text called Bhagavata Purana, very often referred to as Srimad Bhagavatam, in which there is information about the pillars of daily behavior which human beings can and should lean on in order to develop strength of character. By the way, we're outside. It's not that warm, but it's very sunny, so we're gonna try to raise our voices so you can hear us, but there's a lot of going on there in the sky and on the grass and in the park and there. Anyway, before we go a little bit into the beyond part of our discussion, let's learn a little bit about bones.
Yes, thank you. Firstly, I wanted to mention two very important cells within the bone and their functions. So we have osteoblasts and osteoclasts.
Cool names.
Yeah. Osteoblasts are the cells that are building our bone. And osteoclasts release powerful enzymes and acids that digest our bone matrix.
So our bones get eaten.
That's correct. Our bones are being broken down and eaten.
Why?
Because our bone is a living tissue that requires to be renewed throughout our life. And what is interesting is this relationship between those two cells. You can see they do completely the opposite. One is building the bone and the other one is eating and destroying the bone. And the end result of this relationship is our remodeled bone.
Wow.
So, do you know how many bones do we have in our body?
Over 200?
Perfect! Actually, not that perfect. 206. Very close. So, some of the functions of our skeletal system are to protect our organs, permit our movement. It acts as an attachment for our muscles. It forms red blood cells, and it stores minerals such as calcium and phosphate. In fact, 99% of calcium is stored in our skeletal system.
Wow.
Now let me introduce Frank.
Hello, Frank.
Hi
Shall
there.
I hold him for you?
Yeah, you can. So here we have Frank, and just briefly to go over a skeletal structure, we have cranium here, which protects our brain. Then going down here, just below your jawbone, we have hyoid bone, and this is where your tongue attaches to. Then going down, we have sternum, which is our breastbone, that also protects our heart. And we have ribs on two sides. We have 12 on each side, and ribs protect our lungs and our heart. And then moving down, we have pelvis bones. Pelvis bones help us to protect our abdominal organs and our reproductive organs in case of female gender. Here we have two bones called ulna and radius. Going down, here we have our strongest bone in the whole body, and it's called femur. Here, it's just right here. And then going down, we have phalanges. Phalanges are both our toes on our feet and on our hands, phalanges. Here we also have carpals. Carpals are our wrist bones. This is what allows us to move our wrist. And then,
Can I turn him?
yes, if you can turn him, please. Here we have vertebral column, which helps us to protect our spinal cord. So that's a little bit about Frank.
You know what is interesting? This must be very obvious, but there's no bones here. What protects the stomach and the belly and all that?
That's a very good question. Very good. Actually, we have smooth muscles which are protecting our intestines and our stomach and other organs in this area.
Ah, very cool. Okay, so there you go. This is where you find your support. So with the human machine and beyond, we always try to have learn a little bit about the human machine, but then go a little bit beyond. Because a machine, well, is just a machine, and there is so much more to our existence beyond the physical and what we can see and touch. And so earlier on I was referring to the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavata Purana. In contemplating, okay, we're going to discuss bones, structure, support system. And I thought there is this mention of the pillars of daily behavior. And when we lean on these pillars, which I'll mention in a moment, we can find steadiness and strength for spiritual advancement. Now these pillars, very interesting, in previous ages, these were the standard features of advanced civilization. Interesting, because nowadays we say, well, advanced civilization is technological progress and things like that, which don't do very well in advancing our character and even, not very kind to the planet, etc. Anyway, so what is interesting is we can achieve spiritual advancement and strength of character and consider ourselves advanced human beings when we lean on truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. These are the main pillars of daily behavior, what we should be doing and cultivating on a day-to-day basis. And you'll think, well, why go through that? Because this is a way of keeping in check. At a society level, you can keep all sorts of corruption in check if you have these things. Because, I made some notes here, I'm going to read. Truthfulness diminishes by falsity. Therefore, it is recommended for spiritual practitioners not to indulge into gambling, for example. Mercy diminishes with violence. Therefore, there is a practice often referred to as ahimsa, practicing non-violence. And non-violence not only means if you're a human being, you don't need to kill and eat the body of another creature, but also means you should not insult and put someone in distress. And most importantly, to lean on the pillar of mercy is to help someone else to become spiritually awakened. Not to just live for sleep, mate, defend, and eat.
That's what animals do.
That's what animals do. So that's very basic. But a lot of humanity nowadays is mostly eat, sleep, mate, and defend. And there's so much more when you look deep into it. And going back to, okay, austerity diminishes by intoxication, obviously, so therefore is advice for spiritual practitioners or people who aspire to elevate their consciousness not to depend on drugs. And drugs meaning legal drugs, things that governments very happily push on to people, or things that you have to buy in a black market or something like that. Anyway, so
that includes alcohol.
Alcohol, obviously, alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, things like that. People become dependent on these things and think, oh, I have no strength to whatever. I cannot wake up, feel awake if I don't have my coffee. If I can't puff my cigarette, I cannot lose my inhibitions or be myself if I don't have some alcohol and like that. So it's, anyway.
So that's like leaning on the wrong pillars, because the pillars you mentioned before are kind of contradictory now what we mentioned. So if you depend on these things such as intoxication, you are actually leaning on the incorrect pillars that will, instead of elevate you, they will downgrade.
So what rises is, the pillars that rise on this occasion is pride, lust and intoxication, and how it translates to our living experiences. We don't have clarity of mind, therefore we make the wrong decisions and we find no peace. And there's no possibility of spiritual advancement or awakening if we don't have peace. So another aspect of leaning on the pillars of daily behavior, as described by the Srimad Bhagavatam, is that you can be free from the clutches of Maya.
What is Maya?
Maya is defined as that which is not, to be an illusion.
Can you give us an example?
So for example, if you're in the desert and the sun is scorching the earth and you're very thirsty, you've got no water, no food, but somehow in the distance you see some form of mirage which appears to be like an oasis full of water, a beautiful fountain with angels and butterflies and water running, and then you go running into it thinking that you're going to quench your thirst, and then you get there and it's just sand, and somehow because of the light and your mind and your desperation you thought there was water there. So that is an illusion.
Makes sense.
And life, when we lean on the wrong pillars, it's like we are trying to quench our thirst by putting one drop of water. Imagine that you're really thirsty and you're like, I really need to drink, and you just put a tiny drop of water.
That won't satisfy your thirst.
It would be very difficult to, and that is Maya, and yet we are going around chasing for that tiny little drop of water that will not quench our thirst, because we are leaning our support system, it's in the wrong, against the wrong pillars.
So does it mean when we lean on the correct pillars we will be free from the clutches of Maya?
Yes, and therefore we look, or we strive for the things which are character building, spiritually awakening, peaceful for the heart and mind. We will create nice relationships with others of different species, and we won't have all these basic tendencies, animalistic tendencies. We'll rise above them.
Very interesting. And a question occurred to me: how would we know when we are not in Maya? How will we behave? How will our mentality be like? What it is to be not engaged with Maya?
What an excellent question. I'm going to leave that hanging for the third episode, because it's a huge topic in itself, and it's brilliant. So thank you
Okay.
for that.
I
Thank
shall
you, Miss
wait.
Green. So anyway, we're gonna leave it here. The sun is just gone, it's getting chilly, and we hope you like a little bit learning about Frank, learning about the bones, and then also having a little bit of information about topics that you're not often given the opportunity to think about. And if you want to have a conversation about this, please leave a comment below, and obviously we'll take it that you'll be kind and constructive, and if you are coming from that angle, then we'll be happy to have a conversation with you. So thank you very much, and
Thank you very much.
most importantly, remember, you are not the body.
Jai.